The F4-EJ Kai flies into War Thunder with the direct hit update and is already making a big impression. Let's take a look. First things first, the F4-EJ Kai is a version of the McDonnell Douglas F4 Phantom II originally designed in the late 1950s. There have been an enormous number of F4 versions over the years, so I'm going to keep this simple. The F4E was an upgraded all-weather version of the original model that had a built-in M61 Vulcan cannon instead of needing to take them in gun pods, a different radar set, some aerodynamic improvements, and engine upgrades. In 1968, Japan licensed production of the F4E as the F4EJ, which was basically the F4E with some minor tweaks to the weapon system, since Japan originally didn't intend to use it for ground attack. The license agreement allowed the F4EJ to be built in Japan by Mitsubishi, and as a fun tidbit, the very last F4 Phantom ever built was an EJ version built in 1981. The F4EJ Kai, which is what we're looking at here, was an upgrade to the EJ. These were upgraded airframes, not newly built aircraft. It carries an upgraded radar system, a modified avionics and weapons system which has better ground attack capabilities, and expanded weapon options. For example, it could carry an anti-ship missile, but those are unfortunately not represented in War Thunder, at least not yet. The first thing we're going to talk about is the radar. The EJ Kai carries the APG-66J radar system, which is an upgrade over the original EJ's APQ-120. The APG-66 is the same radar set used on the F-16, and has basically every advanced feature that is currently available in War Thunder. It has the regular search and track functions, a look-down pulse Doppler mode, adjustable search zones, and the ACM boresight mode. It's absolutely no exaggeration to say that this is one of the best radar sets in the game, which it should be considering where the EJ Kai is on the tech tree. Using the radar in-game is pretty easy, and if you haven't yet, I suggest checking out my video on radar systems in War Thunder, which goes over some keybinds that you need. A few advanced features have been added since I made that video, but it's still relevant. Generally speaking, this radar set has good long-range detection, a very effective pulse Doppler mode, and a wide search area. You also get a generous helping of countermeasures, so you can still dump 500 flares anytime a heat seeker looks at you. Next up are the weapons. The F4-EJ Kai is armed to the teeth, and it's hungry. You can take an absolutely enormous selection of bombs, rockets, missiles, and gun pods. You get a ballistics computer with full CCIP for bombs and rockets, but you also get a new missile which we'll get to in a moment. Like most top-tier jets in War Thunder, you start off with the basic and work your way up to the better, more advanced missiles. The AIM-9P is your basic heat seeker for close-in dogfighting, and you should be used to it by now. The AIM-7E is your basic semi-active radar homing missile, and performs exactly the same as the half-dozen other planes that get it. The new treat is the AIM-7E2. The E2 version was introduced in 1969 and has some aerodynamic improvements and a new fuse unit. This version was intended to be used as a dogfight missile, with better G tolerances than the regular AIM-7E, but don't let its name and description fool you. It's still a Sparrow, and still has some issues if you try to use it in a turn fight. The biggest advantage you get from the increased maneuverability is that it's much harder to dodge these missiles in a head-on engagement, and this is something the F4-EJ Kai is excellent at. I had pretty good luck using this plane in head-on attacks, and I got more AIM-7E2 hits this way than in any other attack vectors. In real life, the E2 was still not a good weapon, and its hit rate in actual combat was under 15%. In War Thunder, I had much better luck with it and got a hit rate of around 50-50, and a lot of the shots I missed were my own fault rather than the shortcomings of the missile. The real problem in real life was that the AIM-7 Sparrow and basically all versions of it were plagued with mechanical failures and technical problems, and War Thunder doesn't really do anything to model that in the game. Basically, all of the weapons have a 100% reliability rate, and when you fire a missile in War Thunder, you don't have to worry that the fuse is randomly going to fail, or the engine isn't going to ignite, and it's just going to drop dead off of your weapons rail. In reality, all versions of the AIM-7 Sparrow suffered problems like that we just don't have to worry about in War Thunder. And really, a lot of other air-to-air missiles had similar problems, but that's not the topic of this video. This thing, the F4-EJ Kai, is a missile truck, and if you actually find yourself needing to fly home and rearm with this plane, you're either having a really good match or truly putting on a shameful display. In terms of flight performance, the F4-EJ Kai is pretty much what you'd expect from an upgraded Phantom. It retains speed very well if you don't try to jackhammer into the turns, and it's fast. Very fast. It's not the most maneuverable fighter in the game, but with a little practice it can hold its own. After 5 or 6 missions, I got used to the handling and didn't get outmaneuvered too often in one-on-one fights. Of course, 4-on-1 fights aren't exactly uncommon in War Thunder, but that's another topic. Anyway, the acceleration, top-end speed, and climb performance are all excellent, exactly like you'd expect. This gives you a lot of options on how to fly the plane. Takeoff and landing are simple, and the Kai has enough raw power to punch past Mach 1.2 on the deck, even with a weapons load. Everyone has a different playstyle, but the Kai gives you a little flexibility thanks to its pulse Doppler radar. You aren't forced to climb if you want to use your semi-active radar missiles effectively, and I found that this plane worked okay for my own personal playstyle of treetop level flying and fighting. If you got frustrated trying to use the regular F4-EJ in low-level combat, those frustrations are gone with the Kai. You also have to make a choice about your loadouts. You can take out the F4-EJ Kai with a weapon preset for air superiority, a preset for ground attack, or a preset for multi-role. My personal preference is for multi-role, since you have a ballistics computer and can accurately dump some bombs and rockets on ground targets, as the opportunity arises. Or, you can make a dedicated attack on a strategic base at the start of the match. It's often what I do. Similarly, if you want to take this plane out as close air support and top-tier ground RB, you won't be let down. The huge selection of air-to-ground weapons and endless supply of countermeasures will let you hand out some serious punishment to the other team, especially considering that you've got the ballistics computer and you'll be able to use those weapons accurately. Here's something to think about longer term. Right now, Japan in the game has a very limited tech tree. The F4-EJ Kai is at the end of that tech tree, and once you have it, you probably don't have anything else to unlock, so research points end up getting wasted, and it can feel kind of weird flying a top-tier jet once you've unlocked the rest of the tree. But, once more aircraft do get added to the Japanese tree, I'll bet that this plane will prove to be the best high-tier RP grinder for Japan, since you can use the air-to-ground weapons on strategic points and basically guarantee yourself a baseline level of RP every match. Even if you get shot down before taking out any air targets, you'll still be able to make sure that you get something coming out of the fight. Just something to consider as, time goes on and the game gets more updates. One thing I want to make a special mention of, like a couple of the other Phantoms, the EJ Kai can take a loadout of gun pods. This is a thing. These gun pods can blow up pillboxes and hard targets on the ground, fire hose the sky with lead, and have enough ammo to actually be useful. Consider taking out the gun pods instead of a rack of missiles now and then, especially if you brave the toxic wasteland of air arcade battles at top tier. The visuals are very well done, and the F4-EJ Kai has some great custom paint jobs if you're into reskinning your plane like I am. In the video footage here, I was just using the basic paint scheme that the plane comes with, but you've got some great options for brightly colored skins. The cockpit is pretty standard F4 Phantom stuff, and I had an okay time with it. The heads-up display is especially useful, and it's all in English, so that's a good thing. To close out on the F4-EJ Kai, this plane carries more weapons than you'll know what to do with, including a healthy supply of multi-role options. It has one of the best radar sets in the game, and carries an enormous amount of countermeasures charges, along with having very good flight performance. The main downsides are that this is a huge and heavy plane, so it makes a big target in close-range combat. And in my experience at least, it didn't take damage very well, and was very prone to annoying radar failures or just outright explosions after even the smallest amount of combat damage. The final verdict on the F4-EJ Kai is that it finally gives Japan a truly competitive top-tier jet with all of the advanced features you want for the current meta, without having to make any sacrifices. As always, thanks for watching.